This is the muck that accumulates at the bottom of my painting bucket where I keep my brushes. And to celebrate the beginning of summer, I thought I'd make a cake. I love cake. And I don't throw anything away in my studio. And when I get these beautiful forms of old paint and sludge, I save them and I work them into future paintings. I slice through them and just see what they look like. It it really does look like cake. So I wish you a happy summer. No, we're not in the Adirondacks. This is 28th Street in the heart of Manhattan in the Flower District. And many people have asked me to talk about my studio, go into more detail. This is my walk every morning. It's about a 15-minute subway ride from our apartment and then through this flower area where all the hotels and restaurants buy their flowers for the day. The Empire State Building is just to the north, and it's a great neighborhood to work in. It's very busy, full of loading docks and trucks and all these knockoff t-shirt and perfume joints. And one of the great things about New York City is the unpredictability and the contrast. On the same street, on one side, you have these stores, and then you cross the street and there are these luxury boutique hotels. I imagine these hotels and the constituents will eventually push out the knockoff stores, which is a shame. But that's part of living in New York City. My buddy Saeed sells everything from underwear to luggage. What I buy from him are black XXL t-shirts. I buy them in packs of 24, and those are my painting shirts. And I go through about one shirt every 3 days. Saeed takes good care of me. This is my studio building, and the only way to do it in New York City, because it's so expensive, is to join up with other artists. My friends and I have been together for about 24 years, first in Tribeca, and then about 5 years ago into this space. And we took the entire floor, a 6,000 square foot space, and divided it up ourselves into 1,000 square foot studios each, completely private. And then we rent out the remaining 2 studios to another painter and an architect. And we all get along extremely well. It's a very productive working environment. The walls get completely trashed in my studio. I keep it a cool 69 degrees year round. I like it cold. Paint, old bits of paint, I save. The floors are covered with linoleum with plastic underneath to protect the wooden floor. This is my writing desk. I spend about an hour to an hour and a half every morning working on correspondence. I have the 2 computer screens, and across from that, the area where I paint, so I can look at what I'm doing as I'm writing. I think a lot about the way that an object becomes an image in a painting. A painting doesn't just appear, a painting must be constructed. Layer after layer of colored skin is stacked on top of one another to constitute an image. That the painting is an enactment of place. That's how a painting is made. It's a declaration of place. It is a physical thing. That is the result of thousands of incremental decisions over a long period of time that eventually constitute an image. But the thingness must never be far out the back door. It must be right there up front. So that the experience of the painting involves both appearance and disappearance. I am a landscape painter, as I said before, who doesn't really care about the landscape. I'd much rather be eating shrimp cocktail in an air-conditioned lounge than hiking through some forest. So that in my painting, the image of the landscape has to be gradually squeezed out so that not a trace of it remains, so that in the end, the painting is more a comment on disappearance than it is appearance. That it has to have both of those poles, so to speak. A good way for me to describe this to you is to look at the work of William Edmondson, a wonderful sculptor who lived from 1874 to 1951, who I learned about in the late 80s when I worked in art galleries downtown. And in these stone sculptures on pedestals, he's ascertaining two kinds of truth. I think that's for me what they are about. And what the best works of art are about. That on one hand, there is visible truth, there is looking at the world. The artist is depicting something through drawing, through form, through the treatment of light and dark, looking at the real world and depicting it in his medium. And then there's the other kind of truth, the truth that departs from logic and comparison, the truth that relies more on instinct, on lust and heat, on the things that we can't talk about at parties. The other kind of truth that bubbles underneath the surface. That can only appear when the depicted part disappears. So that in a real work of art, like in Edmondson, there is a high-speed collision between the visceral and the intellectual. If it has too much intellectual, too much technique, I think it lacks something. If there's too much wildness, too much visceral, and not enough technique, I think it also lacks something. So it's a peculiar balance that we have to affect, and that Edmondson does time and time again. It teaches me so much because these are stone objects on pedestals, nothing new. How many thousands have I seen in my lifetime? He's not trying so hard. He's simply being himself. He's speaking from his heart, and he's doing something extremely personal. Our moms were right. Just be yourself. With shadows. Shadow not as the absence of light, but as a different kind of light, a light that is bruised and dim. And as Monet showed us, full of spatial possibility and luminosity. I do realistic tree drawings in order to explore the relationships of light and dark in the visible world. I have no interest in being an abstract painter. I can't stand that term. I am a landscape painter who uses the process of abstraction, but I am firmly rooted in the tradition of landscape, meaning that I take very fundamental, very durable relationships and I amplify them. Relationships such as light and dark, foreground and background, horizontal and vertical. In other words, I'm not doing anything new. I am simply building on things that came before and trying to make them as deeply personal as I possibly can. That's where the content, I think, the soul of a work is born, is in when it's put into deeply personal terms. How do you see the world? That's what we want to know when we look at your work. I gave up on trying to be original decades ago. There is no such thing. Originality is what they talk about in art school. Endurance is what we talk about in our studios after art school. That's the stuff that you build a career on. When I was in grad school in the late 80s, I studied with Robert Mangold, and he would try to convince me to firmly commit to one side or the other, to complete abstraction or to representation. And I didn't feel comfortable doing that. I kept doing what I was doing. I kept weaving the two together, and I ignored all of his advice. In fact, I ignored everyone's advice. In fact, the best advice I can impart to you is ignore everything I'm saying. You have to figure stuff out for yourself. And I've always believed that depiction can offer the widest possible platform for expression. Visible expression, formal expression, political expression. I think that observing the world and trying to represent it on a two-dimensional surface is a really important part of the building of an image, or the deconstructing of an image. And that's why I do these tree drawings. I find that the tighter the parameters I set for myself, the more latitude I have to intensify within those parameters. So Originality is a myth. If you want to learn how to be original, stop trying to be original. It's not the kind of thing that knocks on your door and all of a sudden presents itself. It's the kind of thing that sneaks up on you and pinches you in the ass when you don't expect it. You can't try to manufacture originality. You simply have to endure. Our job as painters is not to dazzle with novelty. Our job is to continue and to act as splicers, as couplers, to take the durable things that have come before and to put them through the prisms of our experience and then put them back out into the world as a third thing. I think there's a great deal of comfort in the notion that things inevitably get repeated, in recapitulation, in valuable things that were done before us, things that are durable, get reworked and reworked and reworked. That's what I love so much about the American South. I am a New Yorker. I've lived here for 27 years. Everything I value in my life, this city gave me, and I will never live anywhere else. I love New York City. But there's another side of me that is still a Southerner. I was in Little Rock, Arkansas recently to jury a show, and as soon as I landed, I felt that peculiar, familiar sense of place, of being in the American South. And what I love about the South is that it remained largely exempt from the Western expansion of the United States in the 19th century, but felt and still feels rather like something remote and something exotic, something worn in that is worked and reworked and reworked. That's the reason I use very thick paint, not because I like the way it looks, but because I like digging into something tangible, something workable, and I turn it over and turn it over again and work it and rework it. Just like the mud in the marshes I used to play in when I was a kid. I'd take a big handful of pluff mud, splat it on a dock, put colored paper on it, another splat of mud, and then more paper, more mud, and then I would take oyster shells and then gradually remove sheaths of slime to reveal bits of color of varying intensity, long before I had any idea of what a painting was. So those are the things that helped build my desire to maintain a concrete relationship with the way that the world works. That's so very important to me in my paintings. I'm going to take some titanium white, mix in some alizarin crimson. The alizarin crimson is transparent. Then I'm going to add some ivory black, which is semi-transparent, and slightly warm in its tint. It's going to bring everything together into kind of a dull, muffled pink color, kind of a far-away color. One of those colors that feels like no matter how close you get to it, it still feels like it's far away. Kind of like when you walk outside barefoot at night. You can feel the coldness of the ground. You can't see it, but you very much are aware of it. I think that too often success is confused with popularity. A lot changed for me when I started to change my definition of success. For me, it's about curiosity and effort. Those are the things which make us bulletproof. Those are the things which equip us with the tools to endure, upon which we can build a career. It's great to sell a picture and to get a review, and it makes you feel good for a couple of days, but those are the things I think we can file away in the column of popularity. Popularity goes up and down, but it's not the whatever it is that's in my bone marrow that makes me want to do this thing. Those are often very simple ideas, very fundamental notions. And it's important for me from time to time to sit in a dark room and just try to reconnect with not what I do, but why I do it. And it's often in very simple tasks that I'm reminded of this. Throwing a ball against the wall. It comes back, it goes away, it comes back. Paddling a kayak. I do this and this happens. Walking barefoot at night. I'm doing a lot of that. I mentioned that earlier. There's something so electric to me about feeling something cold and being aware of it without being able to see it. Washing pots and pans. I did a lot of that in all the odd jobs I've had over the years. I like to ram my face into a bush of flowers and just burn the color and the dark and light into my retina. Everything is out of focus, but it's very immediate. It's also a wonderful opportunity to get Lyme disease. So for me, success is just doing the work. I love to work.